Hello and welcome to Dice Punks, a tabletop role-playing podcast where we focus on playing full campaigns in less well-known systems. This week in episode 26, our nobilis and their allies try to break the siege of Theret and defeat the armies of Palaran, god of wilderness, shadow, verdure, and rot. Hello and welcome. I'm Adam, your friendly neighborhood game master, and joining me are...
Hi, I'm Drew. I'll be playing Dosktyr, Regal of Nothing, and guy who is increasingly certain he's about to do something absolutely horrible in one way or another.
I'm Robin, and I'll be playing the winsome warrior Lissa, Duchess of Fury.
I'm Dez, and I will be playing Ramnet, guy who is going to help his boyfriend do something awful, and then try to make him feel better about it.
Aw.
How wholesome.
Or manipulative. I mean, you could read it either way.
Yeah, I know what I said.
Extraordinary times call for extraordinarily weird relationship dynamics.
We have the fandom to think of.
It's true. I don't have any stat growth. Don't know about the rest of the group, though.
I know Dez has an XP roll.
I have a roll, but I don't believe I have any growth. There's a meta statement for the weekend. 2 threes, so yes.
All right, take that experience point. So, in defiance of tradition, your recap this week comes from me. I think this will be the first time I have referred to myself as such, but comes from me, the Hollyhock God. So, last time, we had 2 different strands of plot to follow. We had the Fermata strand with Dosk and Ramnet, and we had the Theret strand with Lissa, Apatia, and Imbi. In Fermata, Dosk and Ramnet had come up from the heart of the chancel with their information and Dosk's boon, and on the steps of the manifestation, they had been confronted by Asha, a former lover of Ramnet's, who claimed to be saving him. There was an altercation, some confusion, an attempted stabbing of Dosk, and then the acolytes took custody of Asha and were bringing him into the heart of the chancel to throw him in the well to be repaired. However, before they arrived at the heart of the chancel, Dosk and Ramnet and their interrogation of Asha managed to get Asha simply put in confinement, held in detention rather than thrown immediately into the well, while Dosk and Ramnet went to investigate what they suspect might be a conspiracy. Arriving at Asha's home, they actually found one such letter, and upon reading it, it was a desperate plea, and an urgent, time-sensitive one at that, from Ramnet for help escaping from the clutches of the Obsidian God and his cronies. In Asha's study, they found some 50 such letters that they combed through, all of them plausibly from Ramnet, his handwriting, inks, papers, wax that he uses, his seal, and escalating from mere friendly letters to sort of coy flirtation to requests for help to desperate pleas to be rescued. Using his divination, Dosk found that the identity of the sender of the letters had been obliterated, and further divinations helped him to discover that, in fact, this was indeed similar, possibly congruent, to those 100 eternal deaths. It seems that perhaps one of those previously divined eternal deaths might be the identity behind the sender of these letters. And they might get to find out soon, because at the end of our last session, another letter was slid under the door. But that's where we left our Fermata crew, and in the meanwhile, Apatia had woken up on Lissa's lap in the inn where they had been sequestered the night before back in Theret. Apatia was chipper. Lissa, a little more responsible, remembered to grab Imbi. and take them somewhere other than a bordello for breakfast. They had grits and cheese. It was a lovely little time, interrupted as they were going into the craftsman's district by the sight of some flying monstrosity scouting out the city. Lissa tried her hardest to use her mastery of fury to bring it down, with limited success, but Apatia sprang onto a rooftop and used her powers of sensation to do something awful to it, and it plummeted into the water by the docks. Arriving at the docks, it was being fished out in several pieces, fully dead. The pieces were loaded up onto a cart as a messenger from the Theret Merchants' Council arrived to request Lissa's presence. She brought Apatia and Imbi with her to the Merchants' Council building and testified before them about this creature and its capacities. Following that, there was general discussion of the defense of the city, and Lissa pitched a sortie, supported by a distraction on the other side of the city, taken care of by herself and Apatia. Imbi agreed to silence the passage of Theret's 10,000-odd variously equipped and organized and trained and experienced troops to the south, while Apatia and Lissa caused trouble to the north. Brother Umbra was in attendance as well, heckling more or less from the gallery, and Lissa, true to form, disrupted the meeting's order to get a couple of remarks in toward the end, particularly to give credit to Dask, much to Krios' Tyr's consternation. And that is where we left the Theret contingent. Given the urgency of the task, we'll be resuming our play today with the Fermata pair, having just heard another letter slide beneath the door.
I think we go for the letter.
Clearly.
We like if this were a Scooby-Doo cartoon, we would look at each other, we would collide in midair, and then we would both scramble to get the letter. This not being a Scooby-Doo cartoon,
We skip the collision.
we probably just go. Exactly.
You're not going to try to see if anyone's outside?
I'm not.
You know, Lissa, who is not here, makes a very good point.
If something can successfully impersonate me in writing, who knows what else they might be able to do.
Sure. But I think I do, first of all, see if I can sense anyone outside. That might be a realm divination.
Realm divination. Ooh. I'm gonna have some fun.
Monster.
It just sounded
Roll
like Gladys.
me.
This got, yeah, you did say it like Gladys. It had that sing-song thing to it. What am I rolling?
Sense plus Eerie, which I believe for you is just 2 dice.
Okay, that bodes well. No matches. Highest is a 10, though.
Your realm divination, of course, does work despite your lack of matches in your roll, as that is the nature of miracles. But as it turns out, there are many someones outside. Most of the population of Fermata, in fact, is outside.
Okay.
You got dad joked.
I did get dad joked. Dad joked by a GM is way better than touched by an angel, in my view.
I was going to say dad joked by a city. Or by your own miraculous abilities. Take your pick.
Yeah, dad joked by a city, kissed by a rose. Okay, while I scoop up the letter, I also can I swing the door open and see if I can see anyone fleeing or flying away.
You swing the door open. No one is in evidence. There are a few people passing by on the street that, like, if they're very quick, could maybe have slid something under the door and then, like, assumed a casual demeanor. Well,
do I call out or do I let it go? I think I do. I pick up the letter and I just say to anyone who seems to be able to hear, the occupant of this particular domicile is not home at the moment. You may wish to reclaim your letter or speak to me if you wish to do so.
A couple of people turn and look at you, but their look doesn't say, I have been caught red-handed, oh no. Their look says, I thought this was the quiet city. And then they continue on their way, and nobody says anything to you.
Well, I tried being divine, and I tried being a wordy loudmouth. I don't know anything else. I, somewhat defeated, go back into the house, and we open the damn letter.
Those are pretty much Dusk's 2 modes. So
it's already been a very characterful session. Yeah, so I think we examine the letter together.
So, opening the letter, in Romnet's handwriting, once again, much more composed than the last one's shaky scrawl. It says, Dearest Asha, I believe you may be too late to accomplish anything on your own, but do not despair. Seek counsel from the Sirthans, and you can free me from these murderers. Love, Romnet.
Well, that's laying it on thick.
To be fair, they have been laying it on thick for about the last week and a half. The letters that have arrived.
We can agree that the prose is turgid. We can discuss this in more detail at a more convenient time. The Sirthans, who we needed to see anyway. Perhaps now would be the time?
I believe so, yes.
Last we heard, they were at the manor. That's right. Is that right? Or Ia was?
Yeah. Ia is the only one that you have any specific knowledge of.
The only one who's, for sure. Although that says the Sirthans, but we already knew there were more, but someone else knows that too. That is definitely interesting information. Mm-hmm. We make for the manor, I think.
Indeed you do, and it does not take you too long to get there. We'll jump over to Theret for a moment while they travel. We rejoin Lissa, Apatia, and Imbi, with the Merchants' Council meeting having adjourned. We can pick up, sort of just at, the moment where people start to file out, if you wish, or we can cut to outside the building. Either way, the very first thing that is happening is that you are seeing Brother Umber approaching you.
Outside the building would probably be better.
Very well. So immediately after the meeting adjourns, the three of you decamp to the steps of the building to consider your next move. And just as you are about to, start to say something to your companions, you catch Brother Umber approaching you from the corner of your eye.
I'm going to clap an arm over both MP and Impatia's back and pretend like I don't see Brother Umber and walk in the opposite direction.
All right, I would like everyone playing and listening to imagine what Lissa looks like clapping an arm over the shoulder of Apatia, a woman who is approximately 5 feet tall, and Imbi, who is 6 years old. And then starting to walk in this arrangement.
In my imagination.
I invite you to picture it.
In my imagination. Lissa just drops down to her knees and starts walking on her knees. To be height appropriate for everyone.
I was picturing her doing the Kazatsky, right? Like it's Ministry of Silly Walks. Kinda.
Yes.
It's not a normal walk.
Or the awkward tall lean, where you have to kind of do the shuffle with your hips.
Either way, as you begin to depart, you hear Brother Umber calling out, "Milady, Duchess of Fury, Servant of Darkness, please wait."
How loudly is he calling out? Could I ostensibly not hear it over everything else going on, or?
Everyone in the square in front of the Merchants' Council building can hear him.
I stop and turn around and smile and say, "Hi, how are you doing, Brother Umber? Just call me Lissa, please."
He gives you a very fancy bow.
Whoa. No need for that, buddy.
still clad as before in like the posh version of a hermit's robe, with an oiled beard and like very meticulously coiffed dark hair. And as he stands up, he says, "I could never disrespect you in that way, milady." "Milady Lissa?" he asks with a question mark, as though he expects to be smote.
Sure, that works.
For his impertinence.
I mean, the response there seems like it should be, "And you disrespect me by ignoring what I'm telling you to do?"
That is probably the response that Romnet would have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes.
But Imbi, for her part, is staring very blankly at Brother Umber and blinking somewhat owlishly, while Apatia has cocked her head and is kind of squinting at him as though confused by him. He straightens up, though, and he says, Duchess, what can be done to draw the obsidian god's gaze to our fair city of Theret? Surely that is the only thing that can save us now. I have tried all of my art, but, alas, other than your arrival, it seems to have been to no avail.
I hate to break it to you, buddy, but we're not here because of you.
He shakes his head and says, No, of course not. You're here because of the obsidian god.
Yes, okay. just making sure we're perfectly clear on that. My friend Dosk, I think, has got the attracting the obsidian god's gaze part of it under control. But if you want to help people set up barricades and make sure that people who may be trying to get further away from the wall have shelter, that would be the best thing you can do right now. Oh, and help make sure that there's food available and water. Just prepare for a siege.
He gets this look on his face like he's had an epiphany. And he says, Of course, the obsidian god provides. I shall go to the barricades right away. Thank you, Duchess. And he gives you an even more fancy, even deeper bow and backs away until he is like lost in the crowd, and then you see a swish of his robes as he's running toward the gates where the barricades are being set up.
I'm uncomfortable.
You have figured out why this character exists.
I mean, it's Chad by another name.
Indy's expression has not changed even in the slightest this whole time, whereas Apatia has tilted her head to the other side like a dog hearing a noise it does not recognize, and she turns to you and she says, That man is rather odd. He seems to be always feeling exactly the same way, regardless of what happens. That's not normal, is it? Is that what people on this side of the ocean are like?
No, not at all. That's the opposite of normal. How does he feel?
That's a good question. It's hard to explain. It's like how sandpaper tastes, but if you liked it.
Oh. I'm very uncomfortable now.
Apatia goes, Yeah, I can't really imagine it either, but well, he's satisfied with it, and he seems to feel that way all the time, at least every time I've observed him. It's quite strange.
He thinks he's serving the big they them upstairs, and calls himself a prophet, but there's Romnut. We've met him. He's the prophet. I don't understand that man. And I realize that I'm surrounded by people, and as I start to continue to talk, I have the sense to lower my voice a little bit, so I'm not absolutely just trashing Brother Umber in the streets.
Apatia, for her part, nods as though this explains everything, and I will offer a clarifying remark that Lissa may very well have said exactly the same thing regardless, but he had actually referred to you and Dosk as prophets. He did not refer to himself as a prophet. Now, that doesn't mean that you were wrong. It just means that, he's only used the phrase in one particular way, and that was to refer to the two of you as prophets back in Caladan. But that is a reminder for players and listeners more so than a correction to anything that Lissa was saying there. So, Lissa, you lower your voice, and I assume this is in the process still of shepherding Apatia and Indy out of the square.
Yes.
Where are you headed now?
Probably just at a distance from the Merchants Council place and people who might have been there. And then once I'm satisfied that we have achieved that distance, I'm immediately going to ask Apatia and Imbi what they would like to do with this before the siege. Or before the sortie, excuse me.
Yeah. I took your meaning. Imbi cocks her head and seems to think. Apatia, however, says, While I know it is unlikely, it is certainly possible that fighting some 50,000 monsters, we might die. Correct?
Yes, there is an element of risk to it. We were going to discuss that later, but yes, you're right.
She has Imbi's undivided attention. And she says, well, in that case, this might be my last opportunity to investigate what that bordello was all about.
I knew it!
I love how focused you are on having her be focused on this, Adam.
Well, there is a metagame reason, which is that it's very funny to put Robin as Lissa through that. And there's also a game reason, which is that Apatia is the nobilis of sensation, and she came within sensing distance of a bordello for the first time in her life without any understanding of what that means. So I have to imagine that would actually be a pretty compelling mystery for her.
Like, I understand that there are
makes sense on all
Doylist
levels.
and Watsonian reasons for this. It's still great.
For what it's worth, Imbi watches Apatia say this and then turns to Lissa and nods solemnly in agreement.
I know, and NB, you probably should not go. They frown.
She nods solemnly in agreement.
Okay. I just want to make sure your nod earlier was not agreeing that you were intrigued by it as well.
She just gestures to Apatia.
Okay. So yeah, once you're of age, Aunt Lissa can tell you all about it. But for now, is there a place that we can drop you off before going to the bordello?
She sort of taps her chin a little bit and pulls her little swatch of canvas out of her pocket, along with a little bit of her charcoal, and sort of gestures at it, and then looks at you.
The blank canvas?
No, the one she's been drawing on.
Okay.
She doesn't unfold it for you to see what she's been drawing.
Oh, so she wants to go back. Do you want to go back to your room so you can draw some more?
She shakes her head. She gestures at the canvas and the charcoal, and then makes a getting bigger gesture, and then looks at you expectantly.
I glance at Apatia to see if she's picked up something I'm not, and then
Apatia squints and goes, "She wants something."
A bigger canvas?
Imbi sort of gives you a little hand wavering, kinda sign, and then sort of sighs and points at your coin purse and points at a building, just a random one nearby. You think it's a house, and then gestures at her canvas and charcoal again.
Do you want to go back to where you picked those up from?
Imbi silently sighs. You realize that you don't even hear her footsteps when she walks. She's perfectly silent as an entity. And then she looks at Apatia intently, and Apatia looks kind of confused and sort of looks around and considers and goes, Oh, right. I think she wants to buy more things to draw with.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, let me, I hand her my coin purse. My whole coin purse. 'Cause
I'm sorry. All of the money in your possession you hand to Imbi.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I imagine considering what we've discussed about Lissa's wealth, that she's not hauling all of it around at any given time.
Okay.
So
that's why I wanted to ask.
She has a stash back in the room, but it's her allotment
Sure.
for the day.
Yeah.
You grow up a farmhand, you start to get really good with your finances because every penny counts.
Right.
So she just hands all the money that. Well, no, she's not going to be able to do that because we're going to bordello. Let's roll that back a bit.
Lissa is nothing if not a fabulous tipper. So,
the point here is that I'm going to be giving an irresponsible amount of money to give a 6-year-old.
Sure. So, for our listeners, we've already referenced this before, but we are using the Rain one-roll engine abstracted sort of economic system here, where your money is an advantage that can be taken at 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and it represents like how much buying power you have. So, Lissa has a wealth advantage of 4, which is roughly, if she bought a house, it would take her down to 3. Anything else does not meaningfully reduce her wealth. So, I'm going to rule that you have just given MB approximately enough money to buy a horse and carriage.
Amazing.
Yes.
And you still have about half that on you. About half that much on you still. And MB looks at it and looks up and looks at it and looks up at you and then sort of like raises an eyebrow and looks around in a clear, where do I go kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh. So by this point, would I actually know where the sort of marketplace,
You do have sort of a district that has the highest concentration of them, but Apatia actually preempts you here. She calls out to a messenger wearing Tier family colors and says, you over there, the Duchess of Fury requires your services. And he sprints over and gives a very deep bow. And he says, what can I do for your ladyship? And Apatia gestures to Imbi and says, our companion here would like to, and she says all of this now actually looking questioningly up at Lissa, would like to buy some art supplies and then have a space in which to do her art. Can the Tier family, is that possible? And she sort of trails off a little bit unsurely, and the messenger looks up to Lissa as though like, is this okay?
Hi, yes, just call me Lissa for future reference. That would be greatly appreciated, because a patient I have business elsewhere, and I just pull out some more coins.
He looks at your coins, he says, right, thank you, ma'am. And he takes, a couple of relatively small denomination coins and then bows and holds an arm out and says, if you'll follow me, young mistress, to MB. And she, for her part, folds her hands formally in front of her and nods imperiously at this messenger, who holds out his elbow that she puts like a hand on, and they walk off.
If I can catch her eye before they are too far away, I'll smile, wink at her, and go, have fun!
She gives you the same imperious nod.
This isn't about fun, it's about art.
While Lissa and Apatia are en route to the bordello, we will catch up with Dosk and Romnet, having arrived...
Stunning sentence. English still contains undiscovered country. Please continue.
Happy to have pushed back the darkness a little bit on that. We rejoin Dosk and Romnet as they arrive at the front steps to the manor of the nobilis of the Obsidian God in Fermata.
Do we see any Timothys in attendance? Milling about outside?
No, I'm going to rule that there are no acolytes in line of sight.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's my home. We don't need to announce ourselves. I think we just we head on inside.
Yeah.
Okay. You walk on in, and you immediately see an acolyte. Because in the sort of dining hall just on the other side of the foyer is an acolyte standing just behind and to the left of Ia, who is seated in the only occupied chair in the room. She has in front of her a flagon and a bottle. She does not seem to have heard your entry.
Well, hello. Making good use of the day, I see. Knight? That joke probably becomes tiresome for one such as yourself who's more used to incandescence. How are you?
When you speak, she sort of jumps and turns to look at you. And as you go on, she gets kind of a wry smile. And in answer to your inquiry, she picks up her flagon and drains it off and puts it down and says, "Day, night. It's all the same here. Maybe it's all the same everywhere. There's certainly no day and night far enough up above us, where Cirtha holds sway. Did you know that your house has a wine cellar? It's very, very well stocked. And I would not mind having a similar one back home in Cirtha. Thank you for your hospitality."
Of course, and not a bit inconceivable to begin your collection whenever you do depart, but I think we have unfinished business first.
The acolyte refills the flagon while you speak, and Ia nods gratefully to the acolyte and takes a sip and puts the flagon down and says, "I'm sure we do. How can I help you?"
First of all, I make sure Romnet is included in the conversation since I'm quite tired of people being imperious about not doing so, and I ask the acolyte to pour two more drinks.
The acolyte bows and hurries off to get other vessels in which to serve.
Suddenly having a vivid vision of Lissa in my head, I say, "Thank you, Timothy."
The acolyte does not respond.
But I'm proud somewhere.
Somewhere en route to the bordello, you smile. Perhaps we should begin by being absolutely honest with each other. Perhaps about yes?
Barks a somewhat bitter-sounding laugh, but says nothing.
Hear me out. We know that there are other Cirthans here still. And if we are to come to some sort of accord and to get out of the predicament in which we all find ourselves, it may behoove us all to speak plainly and promptly.
She gives you a quizzical look and she says, "Other Cirthans? Perhaps." She turns, looks over one shoulder and says, "Well, surely there was a name there, but you don't catch it. But the rest of the statement is, you can come out, and you perceive movement, but you don't see anybody.
Even
it
with
is
the sight?
disorienting." What's your Octoritas's level at?
That would be spirit, stat-wise. 3.
Also, Adam, how does my Smoking Void Skull Truth and Darkness attunement interact with this potential nonsense?
I'm going to circle back to that in just a moment, because I think it will be... Well, I almost said illuminating, but that may be the wrong word.
It was what I was thinking you were going to say, which I think makes it both the right, wrong word at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. But for the moment, I'm going to stick with Dosk's perception, and then we will have a moment or two for Romnet to catch up with what he is perceiving. It won't be long, though. So, Dusk. You think there was a name there, but you can't quite catch it, and there's movement, but there's no body. And Ia turns back to you and says, "There, certain's plural. Are you happy?"
Confused, but I suppose happy is the direction we're trending. I don't believe I caught your companion's name.
She says something again, and you still don't catch it. At this time, Ramnet, if you would like to roll your 6+ Master Die pool for your Nyctopian vision.
Well, that's 3 7s on the roll, so the Master Die makes it 4.
4 7s. All right. This is going to be an interesting thing. So, Dosk, are you still looking with the sight?
Absolutely. I am doing whatever the sight equivalent of squinting while I talk is.
Marvelous.
So, you don't see a person, and you still don't hear the name, but you do see, like, a disturbance of some sort. Like, there is something there, something going on. You just can't perceive it properly. Now, Ramnet, you are non-divine. You are not miraculous. However, you do have a certain amount of Mott's favor, and you are using your Nyctopian vision here to great effect. You can't perceive the person, but you can perceive that there is a person who is, well, pulling up the chair next to Ia. It's not exactly a visual phenomenon, but it is a bit like a person-shaped hole
Jesus.
in what you would otherwise be seeing.
The Sirthan is stealing my bit.
It is a little bit different in that usually, not always, but usually because of your association with Mott, your nothing manifests as darkness, if anything. Whereas, if anything, to Ramnet, this nothing is more of like the white space on a page.
Okay.
Which is more Derrida. All right, please continue.
Well,
As everybody
well
drinks.
done, well done. But yeah, again, it's not exactly a visual phenomenon. That's just the impression that you get. Cue the song.
Thank you, Adam.
So Ia is looking at Dosk expectantly.
I must confess I'm having a hard time perceiving. Your companion, you said Sirthan's plural. I believe our information is that there are 3 total. Is your companion more than one person? No judgment if so. I've been more than one person myself from time to time.
Let's see. Dosk, roll me sense plus empathy. That's going to be 2 dice for you.
All right. It's just really, really good rolls for me this time.
I
In
mean,
my wheelhouse.
the problem here is that
You're
I'm
the
the
one who
only
used the point
sensible
by
one of the
system.
party.
Right. Oh, hey there. Well, pair ones. That ain't nothing.
Not nothing. You almost miss it. There is a moment, a flicker of confusion across Ia's face when you mention Sirthan's plural, her companion being maybe multiple. She seems confused, but only for a split second. It's gone. Ia, for her part, looks to her left, where you only just now realize, or Dosk only just now realizes, that there is the chair there has moved. It's not in the same place it was before. And Ia says, Now, the game is up. You can stop. And there's a moment that, using your same sense plus empathy roll, you perceive as being laden with, like, kind of rebellious reluctance. And then suddenly everything sort of snaps into place. And at the same moment, Dosk and Ramnet, you both see a small, dark-haired Sirthan woman, clad only in a waist wrap, and sort of leaning her elbows on the table from her seat next to Ia, looking in some way or another kind of displeased, maybe even a little bit rebellious. She seems younger than Ia, though it's a little hard to tell with Nobilis. Maybe it's just her posture. She's kind of got both elbows on the table and like leaning her chin on them and giving Ia a look like, geez, Mom. And suddenly, both of you can remember the name that Ia said before. Lenara.
I say
The newcomer does not speak.
It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, and I perhaps don't cover as well as I think I do the name coming back to me. Lenara, seems we lack another glass. What can I get you?
She sort of glares at you a little bit, but the acolyte has returned with flagons for you and for Ramnet, and looks expectantly at Lenara. And Lenara looks at the acolyte and says quite flatly, "Sirtas ambrosia." And the acolyte bows and leaves the room.
We do try to keep a well-stocked cellar around here. Flagons can contain coffee, by the way. I say to Ramnet, knowing that won't mean anything to the other two.
What do you think they brought me? With a subtext of my dear.
I probably look at it with relief, like as though I've panicked for just a split second that it was wine, and like, oh, what a faux pas, and oh, I've neglected yeah. All of this entire drama plays in the span of a moment, and then we're back to this. So, Lenaris has not given any word other than that so far.
No, you're sitting across your dining hall table from Ia and Lenara, and there is no evidence of a third person.
So I then address Ia and I say, "So, if the game is up, what game?"
Ia sighs and gestures at Lenara and says, "Might I introduce my colleague, Lenara, the Regal of Ignorance." Lenara, for her part, gives you an extremely sarcastic wave.
"A pleasure to meet you. I feel a kinship right away."
Lenara narrows her eyes and kind of looks you up and down and says, "Why? What the hell are you?"
In answer, I assume the aspect of nothing.
She scowls at you and waves a hand, and you feel the aspect of nothing dissipate.
How bright is she? Can I tell?
With the sight, you can. She is... well, she outshines you.
Okay. For the listener, that would mean she's got a spirit of at least 4.
Correct.
Okay. I'm obviously not thinking of it in those terms, but for the for those playing along at home, I say, well, I don't mean to be presumptuous. It's simply that nothingness and ignorance, while certainly not one and the same, share common qualities, and I dare say both are underappreciated.
She quirks an eyebrow at you, and she just turns to Ia and says, "He talks too much." Ia stifles a chuckle and says, "Be nice, Lenara. Maybe then we can leave."
Well, if you're weary of me, then we could perhaps well and truly end the game. 3. We're quite confident there are 3 Sirthans in Fermata, and while we extend our hospitality, we grow a bit weary of whatever gamespersonship is at play.
Ia, for her part, keeps a carefully blank face. Lenara, for her part, sighs and rolls her eyes, and you perceive that she maybe stops just shy of making a suggestive sort of motion with one hand.
Fine. Have your game. There's another that matters more. The last time we spoke, Sons Viscountess, we spoke of Ventis. But we parted ways before we could discuss much about that topic, and so let's come to it. Keep your secrets, drink my wine, but let's not be coy about this.
Roll command plus haggle before you do anything else. That's 2 plus a master die for you.
Okay. That is, well, the master die makes it 2 6s.
Very nice. Okay, so at the talk of just have done and let's get down to brass tacks, Ia looks relieved for a moment, and she leans forward onto the table and she says, "Do go on. How can I help you?" Lunara, for her part, is brought a flagon of something, which she looks at skeptically, takes a sip of, and then looks angry, but continues to drink it.
I think we've all been there. Well, okay, so out of character question. Did we figure out exactly what Ventis is? Was that the desert city, or was that just something potentially related to it?
It has been a moment since I listened back to that recording for what exactly Ia said, but my recollection is that she gave you the name of Ventis as though it were a person or entity, associated it with the desert. It's probably either a nobilis or an imperator.
Okay.
Last time you told me it was an imperator.
Okay, thank you for updating us. Yeah, so
cool.
Yes,
sounds good.
Ventis
And so,
is
if you want to marker
imperator.
us and cut all this out, that is something Dosk would remember, although I did not.
Sure.
Well, a war could perhaps be avoided, or rather ended as soon as it's begun. But you seem to think Ventis could play a part. We are in need of a city, preferably abandoned, that we could move. We have the means to do it, but not the raw material.
Ia looks thoughtful. She says, "Now, when we last spoke, I recommended Ventis because Ventis could be something of a sterile alternative to Palaran's wilderness. I know not if there are cities in the desert, but there might be. If there are, they are not abandoned. What do you need a city for? Where are you going to move it? Speak plainly, if you will."
The Shadowlands.
I give a wry smile at Speak Plainly. To the Shadowlands, in its entirety.
Ia looks at Romnet, looks at Das, and says, "You wish to move a city to the Shadowlands?"
We wish to supplant the Shadowlands with a city.
Oh. It's like a light bulb goes off above her head. She smiles for the first time since you've seen her, since your return. She says, "Oh, that is devious. And it might work." She looks at Lunara again, and she looks back at Dosk, then looks over to Ramen and says, "Ventis might be able to supply you with a city, and if you are able to strike a deal, might be able to do you one better, and help you with opposing the influences of Palaran." She licks her lips, seeming somewhat nervous. She says, "But Sirtha has cities too. Perhaps we can strike a bargain."
What would you seek?
In what way would using a city of Sirtha be preferable?
She shrugs one shoulder, seeming to focus on Dosk's remark more, and says, "Well, Sirtha is widely settled, so not wilderness. It is very hot and dry, as these things go, so it is not verdant, nor particularly full of rot. And it is a bright place. The sun and the moon both holding sway there. So it is somewhat opposed to shadow. The city of Cirta could very well do massive sympathetic damage to Palaran, and it would solve your problem with the war while giving us a foothold in Palaran's territory. Of course, the disruption would be much greater for Cirta, so we would expect something else in return as well.
Such as?
She looks kind of thoughtful, as though she's concentrating on something, and then her posture slumps very slightly. She says, "There are several things that I can think of that would be useful, but I would be interested to hear your offer, to see what it is worth to you."
It's quite difficult to negotiate with someone who has always made an aim of keeping their objectives secret. I'm not sure what you want.
She sort of leans forward, and with an added intensity to her voice, she says, "You speak of a war, but you do not know anything about the war. Your Imperator has left you adrift in a stormy sea. There is a greater war."
I will not insult you by asking you to enlighten me, Viscountess of the Sun, but what are you speaking of?
She sighs and she says, "No. As I have told you, I do not have communication with Cirta right now. That is putting me at a great disadvantage. But I am trying to do right by my Imperator and by my Familia. So, I will let you in on something. Your Imperator, correct me if I am wrong, but only recently awakened. Is that so?"
It is?
Well, that is true of some of the Imperators around, but Cirta and others have been awake for centuries. And they have been preparing for this war.
Who are the combatants? Or if not that, then who are the sides?
She sort of glares sidelong at Ramnet and says, "It is a battle royale of sorts. The combatants are the Imperators. And the prize is sole godhood. Only one will remain. And I intend to see that it is Cirta, just as you assume intend to see that it is Mont. So, I am very willing to make common cause with you in the short term, but no, the favor that I am doing you in telling you this, in filling you in on the situation in a way that your Imperator would not. You owe me." She takes a deep breath and says, "So, your immediate threat is Palaran, and a city from Cirta could fulfill the purpose that you have in mind for defeating Palaran. I am willing to see to this. I am willing even to justify it after the fact to Cirta, but you must make it worth my while." She sits back. She folds her arms. Lenara glares at the side of her head. Ia says, "So, make it worth my while. What is worth a city displaced?"
Perhaps there's another way entirely. A way that is immediately as worth it to you as it is to us. What if instead of this gambit with a city, what if the Shadowlands simply
Ceased.
weren't?
She squints, seeming not to understand at first, and then you can almost see the light bulb go on over her head, the anachronistic light bulb go on over her head.
She is of the sun, so that makes sense.
Little tiny sun emoji
And she
pops up.
says,
Yeah, exactly.
she sort of wags a finger. She says, "Yes, you are the power of nothing. That's correct. So, you could just undo the Shadowlands. Interesting. What effect do you anticipate this might have?"
Since we're dealing plainly, I'll tell you that I've never attempted anything on this scale before, and there may be unintended effects, but I would imagine, in fact, somehow I know, that the borders would simply meet. That is to say, it might behoove us afterward to get along a bit better.
She looks thoughtful. Yes, I see. If only I could consult with Sirta. She looks over at Lenara, and Lenara sort of squints at Dosk and whispers into Ia's ear. And Ia nods a little bit and says, "This could benefit both us, and it would not require the displacement of a certain city or a deal to be made with Ventus, but I can aid you. I can lend you some miraculous power. I can make it so that you are not so diminished by this particular feat of strength. I have 2 requests in return for such assistance, though. Will you hear them?"
I will. We will.
She nods. She says, "If any sort of alliance is going to last through the coming days, presumably its goal would be to see Sirta and Mott be the last 2 imperators standing, at which point the alliance would have to dissolve, and whoever was mightier at that point could take the day. So, in order to gird such an alliance strongly as possible, I would ask for 2 boons. 1, access to the libraries and archives of Southen, and the ability to remove such tomes as we find useful from the premises.
Copies of them.
The other, she sharply looks at Ramnet and says, We will see. We'll see what you make of my second condition." She takes a deep breath, sits up very straight, and looks Dosk directly in the eyes and says, "The other thing that would need to be done is that you would need to wed me. Cement the alliance with a marriage."
Should I roll to see whether I spit out my wine?
I'm going to go with, charm plus graces.
Sure, let's do that.
to keep your composure.
Yeah, and I guess we'll decide whether Ramnet needs a composure roll in a moment, too. All right. Here comes 5 dice.
Yep.
That is a pair of 6s.
Okay, you manage to mostly keep your composure. You think your eyes go wide and your mouth maybe, does something a little, funny for a moment before it kind of resets. In the meantime, Ramnet, your charm plus graces is just 2 dice.
Yeah, it is. However, a pair of 4s becomes a pair of 7s. Wait, no, I use Fascinate instead of Graces, Adam.
Oh, you are correct. Thank you for remembering. So that's 3 plus a master die.
The additional die is a 5, so that's 3 4s becomes 3 7s.
I guess I was 2 7s as well. I can't remember the reason, though.
Striking sad boy.
I wonder what it could be.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, am ornamentally pretty.
Right.
Indeed. So, you both managed to kind of, keep your reactions to a minimum.
I would like to specify that in a poker face that is intended to provoke Ia, as it is intended as a mirror to hers. I am, of course, a humble servant of Mott.
Her gaze lingers on you for a moment and then returns to Dosk, slightly more warily.
A marriage to solidify an alliance, followed immediately by a zero-sum destruction of one imperator or the other?
She shakes her head. She says, "You are misimagining the scale of this conflict. You and I, we will live for centuries while imperators contest. Or at least such was the case the last time that such a war took place." Her eyes flick to Ramnet, and she says, "Marriages of state are not uncommon, and it would take such a bond to keep hostilities at bay while we dealt with all of our competitors. And imagine how great the imperators of darkness and of the cosmos could be, joined together for a time."
This insistence on a sole victor does make it a bit of a shaky basis for a partnership, don't you think?
She shrugs one shoulder and says, "How long do marriage alliances last among mortals? 1 generation, 2? Ours will outlast that."
These are quite extensive, in some ways, demands for an offer that already benefits you as much as it does me.
That
It
is
seems.
the idea. Equal benefit for both parties.
There's a benefit, I think, we've found around here to our Imperator being mysterious. And that's that we maintain perhaps a bit more individual will than other nobles you may be used to. To be pressured into something so personal strikes me as a price unrelated to the sort of scale of a cosmic war. These are not things of a kind.
She gives you a strange look.
I
and
will
she
interrupt.
Says, mm-hmm.
It's just spite. These things happen.
That probably is genuinely occurring to me for the first time as he says it.
Lenara laughs when you say that, and Ia glares daggers at her. Ia turns back to Dosk, choosing for the moment to ignore Ramnet, and says, "You carry a shard of your Imperator's soul. What could be more concrete, more meaningful than a union between two such people that lasts in perpetuity until such time as it is revoked? I think you are underestimating exactly how much you represent your Imperator in all of these matters. But I suppose it does not have to be you and I. It could just as easily be the Lady Lissa and, well, Rimush or Eka."
I am visited by a vivid mental image of what Lissa would say if she were here.
All of our imaginations are vivid where Lissa's reaction to this scenario is involved.
Yeah, I feel very keenly the fact that we're not all together in this moment. To leave Dosk speechless is no small thing.
Ia stands up, putting her hands on the table, and says, "Perhaps this would be an easier conversation to have if the Lady of Fury was with us. You can take us to her. We can go there right away."
I can't promise you anything but a fiercer rebuke than I've provided. But again, we should work together if we're to survive at all. So, yes, these terms I happily accept. Let's go, and let's discuss.
She nods once rapidly and snaps her fingers, and the acolyte comes rushing up to her side. And she says, "My effects from my room, please. We leave immediately." And Lenara goes, "Finally!" Let us shift back for the moment to Theret. Lissa, you and Apatia have arrived at the bordello from the other day. It is... I'm going to go with approximately lunchtime.
Oh, jeez. So pretty much empty.
There are a few people, but not a lot. It's not the busiest time of day. It's probably actually a little bit busier because there's an army camped outside. And it seems like a relatively nice bordello. And frankly, when you get close to it, Apatia starts to get a little bit like vague and distractible.
I pick up on that because I've kind of figured out how her there's no weird way of saying this.
And with that as a preface.
No, I'm reeling from like the seriousness of the scene that just happened and going back to like the girls go to the bordello together.
I love that transition so much.
Congratulations on achieving maximum emotional dissonance, Adam.
Yeah. So suffice to say, I pick up on Apatia's reaction to all the sensations emerging from the building, no doubt. Having considered that might be a consequence of visiting when she asked. So I kind of rest a hand on her shoulder just to kind of pull her out of the daze and say, hey, if this is pretty much a house of sensation, you could make the argument. So if this gets too intense for you, let me know.
She nods slowly and goes, "Oh, of course, it is interesting. It's very interesting. Is that... Oh. You've been to such places before, haven't you?"
Yes. It's not uncommon in these lands for the sensation of pleasure to be sold as a matter of business with consenting parties.
Yes. I see. Well, that's rather clever, I suppose. She shakes her head a little bit as though to clear it, and she says, I feel as though I have a lot of learning to do. Perhaps... And she darts a nervous glance at you. Perhaps you could help me figure out how to navigate this scenario.
Which scenario are we talking?
She sort of like presses fingers to her temples and goes, It's already hard to focus. I think I should like to see what it is that produces such sensations firsthand.
So, the clientele values their privacy, generally speaking. We could ask the mistress of the house if that's something you're curious about, and if there's some willing participants, then of course, I generally come here for reasons other than what you might expect. I was rebelling against my family and just came here to chat with some my fellow ladies.
She goes, Oh, I see. I was assuming that you would be the willing party there, but I may have been mistaken.
Oh, I'm always the willing party.
Good. Then
sorry, that pause there.
Let us perhaps purchase you some companionship, and I can be an audience.
Oh, I mean, I usually don't have to purchase companionship. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but these ladies are hardworking enough on their own that I'd rather them be able to give their service to those in need.
The ego of that line was
immaculate.
She blinks once she says, Oh, I see. Well, perhaps you could help me then arrange for... Oh, now I am unsure. She, while she's saying this, is walking through the front door.
Why don't we just get a drink at the bar, kind of take in the ambiance and see what you feel up to past that?
She nods a little bit and she says, "That's sensible." And she, entering and finding a seat at the bar, says, I usually only drink one thing, but what do you recommend?
Once I get the bartender's attention, probably orders both a round of moonshine. Whatever the
Wonderful.
stiffest drink they have is.
Yeah, no, they distill their own liqueurs, and this the bartender is a very fit young man wearing baggy trousers with a colorful belted sash and an open vest with no shirt. And he has a gleaming smile that he directs primarily at Apatia as he serves your glasses. And Apatia says, "Oh my, this smells the way that fire tastes. It's exciting."
It tastes like fire, too.
She takes a sip and she goes, "Yes, there's fire here, but there's also sun on leaves and the taste of loam. I like it." And she starts to just chug it without any apparent discomfort.
Well, she's proven that she has a higher aspect than I do, so I'm just sure. I drink mine at a slightly more appropriate pace.
Understandable. After a time, Apatia has been watching the staff of the bordello come and go from the common room for some time, and she's been sort of asking trade questions of Lissa as this goes on. I presume you've been answering as best you are able.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, "Well, I see that there are sort of two options for my curiosity to be satisfied. One would be for you to pay one of these lovely men or women and for me to spectate, or for me to pay two of these lovely men or women and for me to spectate. Which one do you think is more socially appropriate?" For the record, Apatia does not seem drunk at all and is kind of irritating you.
Of course she's not
because
drunk
you
at
are
all.
kind of drunk.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem fair because she's tiny.
Oh, jeez. Well, I imagine paying two would be the way you'd want to go.
She nods. She says,
I don't think I've ever had anyone watch me, and I would be a little bit distracted. Which, I would hate to be in that moment.
She nods sagely and she says, "I suppose that makes sense from what I know about it, which is fairly little. I can't believe I've never really thought about this before. You're a good friend."
Thank
Am I
you.
drunk? I might be drunk. I can't tell. Can you tell?
I'm feeling it a little bit, so if you are too, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
She nods decisively and she says, "So, do I just walk up to someone and name a price, or do they have a menu?"
It depends. I haven't been to this one before, but it depends place to place. The bartender is generally a good person to ask about how operations work here.
And with that, the bartender slides into the conversation and says, "Indeed I am. So, right this way now," and takes Apatia back towards the door and starts a conversation with her and a couple of the other working men and women. And she seems like she's going to be pretty well taken care of. What do you do?
I just order myself another round.
Fair enough. So, we will leave you waiting for Apatia to return for the time being. Is there anything in particular that you are doing while you drink?
I'm probably just chatting up the bartender, asking him how business is, befriending him more or less, so you're going to have to name him.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. His name is Jan.
Yeah. Okay.
And he seems very friendly. They've definitely put him on the bar because he's personable as well as attractive. And where most people who work in an establishment like this, sort of make their bones by being good listeners, he is also a good talker.
Mm-hmm.
So he passes the time pretty well, and you tip him fairly generously as you drink.
Very generously.
Let's hop briefly back over to Fermata for the moment. So Ia has gotten the acolytes to gather her things. Lenara has made a show of being impatient and disgruntled. What are Dask and Ramnet doing in this interval?
I'm trying to think if there's anything I need to resupply, but I think any of my effects that I might need, I already have. Pardon if this is a longer pause. I am checking because I haven't been home in a minute. I'm checking my list of possessions to see if there is anything.
I will ask Regal of Ignorance, is that it?
Mm-hmm.
What she knows of the letter.
Interesting. How much are you willing to describe? Do you just ask about, quote, the letter, unquote, or are you giving some context?
I will show her the last paragraph of the most recent letter.
Okay. She looks at it and she goes, wow, whoever wrote this seems melodramatic as all hell.
Agreed. However, I was inquiring more as to how it might be that the Serthans would assist whoever this person be.
She gives you a somewhat withering look and says, we wouldn't, but whoever wrote this certainly seems to want to imply that conspiracy would be helpful.
Thank you for letting me know. And I will just toss a slight emphasis on no.
She rolls her eyes a little bit and says, what's happened to your eyes?
I am a humble servant of Mott.
She snorts a laugh. Literally. She says, there's nothing humble about you.
I will shrug. Subtext of, if you want to go.
Humility, it seems to me, is a relative thing. Far more humble than his abilities warrant.
Lenara, for her part, fixes you with a stare for a moment and then gives an extravagant roll of her eyes. And at about that time, Ia re-enters the room with an acolyte in tow carrying her effects. Ia says, right, are we ready to go?
Seeing no reason to not.
I would say we are, and I'll say that in this time I had some Timothy or other bring me, because I've been in combat and I have torn garments, so maybe just I have some new garments with me now in a satchel. I thank the Timothy extravagantly and tell as many of them as I can find that they could use some time off after this ordeal, and they're doing a bang up job. I'm thinking of Lissa this whole time, but none of that do I say to Ia. To Ia, I simply say yes. I think we'll be off.
Ia nods decisively and Lenara sighs. And you begin to head toward the gate. It's not very long before you arrive. The statue is unchanged. The plaza is still festooned in those silvery flowers. And The Fermatans who are in evidence kind of stop to watch as you approach the gates. Now, this, I believe, is the first time you've attempted to leave the city without Lissa to communicate with the gates for you.
That is true. That is true.
I didn't even think about that.
So, in what, if any, manner do you attempt to exit Fermata?
This probably occurs to me in real time. And besides missing Lissa more acutely than ever, I probably run through my head what it is she does. I'm not sure she's ever explained it to me. So I probably don't really know. I'm probably aware vaguely that tutelary spirits are a thing, but I don't know like how she talks to them or that that's what she's doing. I may not even know that. I may not have had occasion to know it.
Oh no. This is going so well already.
We are helpless without you, apparently. So not wanting to look a complete fool in front of the Sirthans in particular, I think I just ask the gate in words. And it being dusk, probably quite a lot of it.
All right, I'll let you pick your command or charm roll here, and then once you've rolled and seen what your result is, you can say what you say.
It's definitely charm.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no, like, Dusk would not be trying to intimidate the gate. I'd be trying to ingratiate myself to the gate. So
that seems like a charm plus graces, right?
Yeah, I think so. Well, yeah, I could also do charm plus lie, but I don't think I would think that Lissa is just literally speaking to it. So no, graces it is. Let's do that.
Sure, 5 dice.
Okay, that is 2 9s.
All right, 2 9s. So that's a fairly successful roll. In what way do you attempt to ingratiate yourself to these gates?
Ouch.
I think the best baseline. Yeah, exactly. So we all find a lovely place. I think what I do is I use the best baseline I have, the best proxy, which is the way that Lissa insists on being respectful to the Timothys. And I say, "Oh, wondrous and reliable gate, we have an urgent need to make our way to Theret. Would you be so good as to open the way? It would sure be appreciated. Thank you."
I love everything about this.
Yeah.
There is a sense of inquiry that comes back to you from the spirits of the gate that are like, you parse from it that like they understood you and they're sort of like, more info please. So maybe like where in Theret you wish to go.
Okay. Where did we appear last time? I'm trying to remember because was it in the dungeon? Which
you guess is probably not where Lissa is.
Right. No, well, if things are going at all well, then no. If things are going at all well. Yeah, okay, so yeah, continuing on that charm roll, I say, well, the last time, I don't know if I'm saying this out loud, because what I received was not out loud.
No.
But me being me, let's say I am just talking to no one and gesticulating wildly while I do, just like in real life. I'm talking to someone, but gesticulating wildly in real life. You get me. So I say, the last time we availed ourselves of your services, you dropped us in a rather convenient location, somewhere dark, somewhere deep, and yet somewhere adjacent to the manor. There again would be just wonderful. Thanks.
The gate swings slowly open, silently. And Ia tries really hard to keep her sob inaudible, but she doesn't quite succeed.
I will just look at her and nod, sort of knowingly.
She resolutely ignores you.
Good. Good.
And Dusk, you lead the way through the gate into the absolute darkness outside of Fermata.
I thank the gate repeatedly as we're passing through it, being unsure whether that's what did it or not, and not wanting to mess it up.
Dusk, Romnet, Ia, and Lenara step into darkness outside of the gate, and there is that moment of disorientation and falling feeling. And then there's solid ground underneath your feet. You're in a dark room. It doesn't seem, by the sort of sense of space and movement of air, to be all that big, and there's a combination of smells in it, something kind of musky and something kind of citrusy over it. And then there are rather distinctive sounds that filter into your perception. Sounds of pleasure.
We're in the basement of the bordello, aren't we?
Oh, no, you're on the second floor. Their rooms don't have windows.
There would be perfect darkness in a bordello.
In an unoccupied bordello room? Yes, there would be.
Yeah.
Very heavy curtains.
Yeah. It makes all the sense in the world.
The first sound you hear other than something coming from another room is Lenara going, "Oh, for the love of..."
You know,
I can only assure you that this was not precisely my intention. However, we have arrived in the city.
when you say it like that, it may not have been his intention, but it certainly is its own reward. Out of character, I think I have now decided that, like, one of my goals in my mere mortal life is to piss off these two precisely as much as I can.
A worthy goal.
I accept your terms. Okay.
Relatively shortly, Ia gropes her way to the door and opens it, and the light from the hallway lamps, dim though it may be, illuminates the room that you are in. There is a large four-poster bed with curtains around it that you have arrived next to, and minimal furniture otherwise, though there is a wash basin and a chest of drawers. The hallway itself is long, dimly lit, perfumed, and not as noisy as it could be, but somewhat noisy.
Well, not being paying customers of any kind, I think we make our way downstairs.
Dusk, you lead everybody downstairs, and you are somehow unsurprised to see that the first thing that greets you as you enter the common room is the sight of Lissa behind the bar, standing behind the bartender, a handsome, dark-haired young man in baggy trousers with a decorative sash and an open vest with no shirt underneath it. You're going to go with helping him make drinks. As the common room is somewhat sparsely filled. You're not sure who the drinks are for, but you are glad to see Lissa.
Turning to Ia, I say, "You asked to see Lady Lissa? Well, here she is. What our arrival lacked in auspice, it certainly made up for in efficiency. Drink?"
She is still for like a beat and a half, and then she goes, "Yes, a drink would be lovely." And Lenara, again, snorts a laugh. You take your seats at the bar.
There is a moment. I recognize that people are approaching, but I'm too busy asking for clarification from Jan about how many jigs of a particular liquor go into this before we put it into the shaker. And I'm like, "Hey, gotta get you a drink." And I glance up and cut myself off because I see that Doska's returned. And there's a moment where we're like, "No!" And then I cut myself off again because I see Ia and then someone I don't know. And I'm like, "Oh, hello, everyone." And I don't think I've had the pleasure of meeting you yet. This is my best friend, Jan.
Jan goes, "Oh, stop it." And then sort of spins a little bit away from you in one direction and goes, "Suppose we'll need more drinks." And with a flourish, picks up some extra glasses and says, "Lissa, darling, find out what they're having."
I'll take your orders. And I just snort.
Lenara puts her head down on the bar with an audible thunk and says nothing. Ia blinks twice and goes, stiffest drink you have.
Oh, that's the easiest. That's what I've been having, and I pull, like, I've clearly had the bottle in my hand this whole time, so I pour her a glass of it and slide it over to her.
She
I have a policy that served me
nods.
well, which is that I'll have precisely half of whatever you've been having.
Probably closer to a quarter or an eighth this time. I need to catch
trust
you
you.
up.
Jan goes, "Oh, I've got it," and grabs something out of a brown bottle and pours it into a stone vessel and slides it to Dosk and says, "Drink up, sugar," and winks at you.
What are the flavor notes of that one, Jan? Listen to this. He's amazing.
He goes, "Oh, well, it's aged in an oak barrel. It's got notes of lavender and of turmeric and nuances of toast."
Isn't that awesome? Apatia taught me that things could have flavor notes.
I raise the cup and I say, to notes and nuance.
It's fine. It's not your favorite thing you've ever had, but it's fine. Jan looks at Ramnet and says, "What do you have?" Talk about what? And seems to perceive your eyes and kind of stumble backwards and goes, "Well, what'll you'll have, handsome?"
Do you have coffee?
Oh, he looks a little disappointed. He says, "Not since the siege. I'm sorry.
Well, not a problem.
Tea, though, if you prefer."
I'll name off a very particular sort of tea that is likely to be common, but not likely to be standard.
He goes, "Oh, yeah, we just have a couple of cups of that left. I'll brew you some up."
Marvelous, thank you. I will offer him a smile that, but for my visage, might be a flirt.
He does have trouble meeting your eyes.
I mean, yes.
Lenara, for her part, seems to be using her estate to essentially remain invisible to Jan, and she has just grabbed a bottle, seemingly at random, off of the bar and is drinking from it.
Like you do.
Good choice.
Lenara, with one hand drinking from the bottle, gives a thumbs up to Lissa, and then immediately just transitions it into a middle finger and keeps drinking.
That wasn't nice. I don't even know you.
Lenara puts the bottle down and says,
That's the point.
"My name's Lenara. It's terrible to meet you." And she starts drinking again.
This is Lunara, the regal of sarcasm. Excuse me, I mean ignorance.
She's she's
that's why she said it's terrible to meet me.
she's one of our missing
sense.
Sirthans.
Missing Sirthans. Right. Yeah, we were worried about that. How many?
One remains unaccounted for. We decided not to worry about it. We have a whole list of other pressing concerns. Hello, by the way. We didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, I'm just learning the ropes of bartending.
Jan comes back with Romnet's tea and says, "Oh, darling, you're already an expert," and pecks you on the cheek.
He's so supportive.
He has to get up on his tiptoes to peck you on the cheek.
Yeah, there's going to be a sortie tomorrow. Your uncle suggested that we have about 10,000, and they're going to go on one side, and then Apatia and I are going to be a distraction on the other side.
Jan turns to you and goes, "Oh, no, that sounds far too dangerous."
No, I'll be fine. That's why I'm getting drunk now, so I can be in the angry mood tomorrow.
He pats you on the bicep and starts to say something about it, and then gets distracted and just starts rubbing your bicep.
I flex.
He gasps.
Nuances of steel.
For what it's worth, the glass, well, not exactly, it's not made out of glass, but the drink that Jan poured you lives up exactly to his description, although you're not sure how you feel about it, all told. It was accurately described. You're not sure that it tastes good. Ia takes a drink and says, "That's nice. So, we were discussing arrangements for an alliance between Sirtha and Taraxis, I believe. And the matter had come up of a diplomatic marriage. So, which one of you wants to get hitched?
I do a spit take behind the bar.
For greater context, Lissa, it's apparently a free-for-all among apparentors.
Oh, hold on.
Let me explain. Let's add more context. Look, we shared the plan. I'm already feeling it a little bit, despite this fact that I'm trying to power through the lavender notes and the various nuances.
Well, this is your second drink in like half an hour, so
yeah. No, it's not inconceivable.
Also,
Plus we've all had a
separately,
day.
speaking of lavender, it's like licking a grandmother.
I had a mouthful of water, Dev.
I know, I saw.
I think he waited.
We shared the notion of, well, the definitive attack, and it seems that Ia likes the idea, could lend some power so that I might not do myself too grievous an injury in doing the deed, but she had terms. Among them, that one of us, that is to say, one of the nobles serving the obsidian god, marries one of them. One of the nobles serving Sirtha. She's entirely flexible as to who.
The smile falls off of my face, like an anvil in an Acme cartoon.
Lots of cartoon imagery this session, which is weirdly appropriate.
For this group, yes.
Can we talk? I'm making a visible effort to sober up, and become very appropriately serious. Can we just go talk for a moment, Dosk? We can. Jan, can we use one of the rooms?
Jan says, "Oh, darling, use whatever room you wish. That's unoccupied anyway."
Oh, of course. I know. and then
as the GM, I'm going to add that using aspect miracles could help you sober up if you wish to use them. And also, Ia, as you are leaving the room, sort of holds up a finger and goes, "And remember, marriages of state are not about fidelity, if that helps." And then starts drinking the rest of her drink.
I just grab Dosk by the cuff of his shirt and walk off. I imagine I'm mostly carrying him at this point, though not so much that his shirt is up in his armpits uncomfortably.
Picturing the way someone grabs a puppy by the scruff of the back of the neck. Okay, so we make our way upstairs. I definitely, as I'm being pulled, reach out to give Ramnet a reassuring squeeze on the arm.
And Ramnet, you are left with two of the nobilis of Sirtha in the common room of a bordello in Theret.
I pull out a deck of cards. Because I am sober. And also a bit of a dick.
Perfect answer. Perfect answer. So, our two nobilis are upstairs, I assume searching for an unoccupied room.
Yeah, they have a pretty... I imagine the door is wide open if it's unoccupied to avoid any of the confusion.
If it is unoccupied and available, yes.
Okay. Yes. Then we find a door open, and then...
We find an unambiguously unoccupied room.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's what I was aiming at.
So, yeah, you enter, you close the door, you have some semblance of privacy.
Can you do the dome thing?
Of course, I do the dome thing.
The dome thing is done.
I'm going to need you to run that by me one more time, because I think I might have misheard you the first time.
I think perhaps you didn't. So, they know the plan. I sort of gaze up at my dome as though I can see it, which I can't. They prefer the version where the shadowed lands simply become in-nothinged. And furthermore, Ia said that she could lend me some of her power to help do it. I know that I can somehow, but I don't know that I can without something potentially permanent happening to me, so power could help. But she seems certain, for one thing, that this battle among powers is a battle to the death, that every god wants to be the only one. But that a short-term alliance could be, perhaps, beneficial. And it being a political alliance and one of convenience at that, one of her terms was a political marriage. She proposed to me, but then made it clear that she's rather indifferent as to who marries whom. I should add only that I brought her here with the very clear stipulation that she might be told no in much less ambiguous and neurotic terms than I said.
But then you would have to be the one getting married and not to Ramnut. Hold on. I like kind of shake my head for a moment and go, so all the Imperadors are at war, and the big guy, big they them down Elstairs has not told us that, and this includes all the Imperadors, including...
Well, it seems to. We've heard about this before, this idea of wanting soul godhood, and it seems, although Ia is not currently in contact with Cirtha, that Cirtha certainly wants to be the only god. We don't know that the big they them Elstairs actually does, or whether they're simply mute on the topic. It seems to me that alliance implies plurality, and that there may be some way for this not to be a matter of one god becoming the god of bones. There probably is a god of bones. That was disrespectful. You know what I mean? This doesn't need to be a battle to the death, it seems to me, but Ia seems quite insistent that it does, but that process, such as it is, could take centuries, and so she wants...
These gods keep forgetting how exhausting it is to take care of one's own existence, much less all of it. I don't want to be part of some, godly free-for-all.
I walked backwards into this bizarre proposal because I was trying to find a way. I was thinking about what you would do, actually, and it seemed to me that you would try to find a way to not make it a godly free-for-all.
But wouldn't they, if they're already of the opinion it is, wouldn't the only reason they'd want to have this alliance to begin with is because they think they have an upper hand?
Well, I suppose. I think she thinks that we'll do better together against the rest as a unit, but she seems to fully intend to end the alliance as soon as that's more convenient.
And we have Apatia, who stood up to her Imperador, ultimately to help me, and I assume that they would not want us dealing with Apatia or Indy.
No, certainly not. No, they come from a land all in on the whole single god thing, and we've seen what that looks like. It's not good.
It's not. And I don't want to be part of this. I don't want to get married. I don't want to fight and some pawn for some god to stroke their own ego. I don't. But you need the extra power, right?
Well, maybe not. At this point, I withdraw the boon that I got from Mott. This I received from the big they them, and again, I just know it will help, and it might be enough. And maybe, now that I'm saying this, I've missed you, by the way. Now that I'm saying this out loud, to you in particular, maybe the risk is worth freedom, not making alliances with people bent on the destruction of everyone, just about, including us. Maybe we stand on our own with people who really believe what we believe, and damn the rest.
If this is some sort of conflict that we're going to be dragged into, I don't want us to be dragged into it already wearing a yoke.
That's well said.
So, what we can do is when Apatia is done with her studies, we can ask her if there's a way. Because another thing I refuse to do is have you possibly permanently. There's a very big question mark after that hurt and this whole process.
I don't think I can know what the math is. I know this will take a lot, and I know that I waggle the object and then realize I should be careful not to drop it, and so I waggle it more gently, and then I hold it in both hands. This helps, but it's impossible to say how much. I'm not sure there's precedent for what it is I plan to try. I'm willing to risk it. I'd rather be harmed than yoked, if it means that we can live the way we want and need to live.
That is your choice to make, but no, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that you don't get hurt. So
sure, of course, and likewise, always. But you're right. Your friendship is something that we share. It doesn't come with conditions. We don't need... God, I shouldn't have even brought them here. I should have just left them there. I just... Look, I never said yes. I never offered them what they were asking for. I just, to my everlasting shame, didn't really say no either.
I mean, it was nice of you to bring them. That way they could get my answer in person and have no doubt. And I appreciate that your intention was not to speak for me. A lot of people have
No,
tried
of
to
course
do that.
not.
I know.
No, I would never.
I know you would never. So I'm letting you know that you don't have to feel bad about bringing them here. Maybe we can find some sort of arrangement with them. I don't even know though, because like Ia has been. I feel like she is on a very tight leash. And I feel like she, as much as I know that she has given good advice and given good information from time to time, there's only so much she can do.
That's true. And that's all the more reason that we have to say no, right? And make it clear that Raymush shouldn't come courting afterwards either. It's... How can we even be sure that she can do what she says she can do? How could we be sure that her Imperator won't withdraw whatever power she's been provided at the last moment? No, we can't even... If they want to be allies, then we'll let them be allies, but not the way they... No, we can't.
I trust them to come up with a better option for us.
Yeah. All right. I think we're agreed. I didn't mean to hit you with this right in the middle of your new career.
I'm just I'm just having some fun on what might be apparently the last normal night that any of us have.
I don't think my sense of normal has survived intact the last period of my life, and I can mostly accept that.
Yeah.
As long as I say, we're in it together.
We're in it together.
Okay, I think we
take the dome down.
And the dome comes down. Do you head back to the common room?
How much can I cheat at cards, Adam?
We're going to get there in just 1 second.
How long? Well, this whole dramatic scene, that has been the question.
Can
so
I might, before we go down to the common room, and I would hate to interrupt Apatia's studies, but I may do, what's around me? Is there like any rugs or, I'm just gonna,
there's
I've already
a bed, a blanket, a night table, a chest of drawers, a rug, some curtains.
So I'm thinking about, instead of doing my usual creation of lesser fury and the tutelary spirits around me, I'm trying to come up with a sensation that would be like enough to kind of let a patient know that something's going on by creating fury. So I don't know if just If there is a way to project my current fury, even though it's the sort of conflicted, confused, inner turmoil type of fury,
Mm-hmm.
I may try to give it to the sylphs of the air.
I feel like this actually is just kind of a ghost miracle.
Oh, okay.
For your estate.
Yeah.
And you can kind of like angle it toward Apatia, if that's what you're aiming to do.
Not that I'm trying to make her feel it, just that I'm trying to get like essentially a ping on the sensation radar.
Right. Get her attention. Yeah. You can. That's a ghost miracle you can do. So let's pause for a moment there. And while all this has been going on, I'm gonna need a charm plus lie is the first thing I'm gonna need from Romnet.
Ooh.
That's 5 dice for those listening.
That is 4 9s, Adam.
4 9s.
What?
Jesus. All right. The second roll I'm going to need from you is a sense plus empathy, which is 6 dice.
A 666 roll.
Oh, hell yes! 666. I'm going to put it in the show notes real quick.
Counter goes up, yeah. Holy shit, what's going to happen with these cards?
I am going to school them and shame them, is the hope.
So, yeah, in the interval that the Nobilis have been gone, you have busted out some cards, and you've offered to play the game of choice for these Sirthans, and Lenara just rolls her eyes, but Ia goes along with it, and Lenara then plays in the game that Ia picks, and you fucking shellac these two Nobilis, just 7 ways to Sunday. They don't seem to use any miraculous abilities on this, and you bluff, you cheat when you deal, you count cards, you can read them like open books, and there's no exactly like bets on it, but they end up buying you like 4 more cups of tea, which you just like, hey, put it on the tab, rather than having 4 cups of tea in front of you. And they start looking pretty disgruntled, and you're sort of hypothesizing that maybe Lenara is about to erase your memory, based on her expression when Lissa and Dosk come back down the stairs. Dosk, Lissa, you come downstairs to see Romnet kind of smiling Cheshirely, and Ia and Lenara kind of variously glaring at him as he shuffles some cards. And Jan looks on with a slightly bemused expression.
Did you show them I was gonna turn to Romnet and say, did you show them a little bit of mercy?
This is cards.
I shouldn't have asked.
As they're having this conversation, I turn to Ia and say, not that your proposal was not appreciated, but the answer is going to have to be no. Political marriages are against my religion, but you are lovely. And hopefully we can come up with some other arrangement that satisfies us both.
Ia, for her part, looks like she bit into a lemon. And she says, I suppose we will have to, but it will probably not be before the battle that awaits you. As I understand, there is to be a sortie tomorrow morning, no?
Yes.
She nods sharply and says, then Lenara and I will be gone from the city before then. If you change your minds, utter a quick prayer to Sirtha, and we will hear it. She stands, grabs Lenara firmly by the elbow, and starts dragging her towards the entrance.
Safe travels, and remember to keep your stakes low.
Ia doesn't react, but Lenara makes a rude gesture behind her, and before they reach the door, there is a tumult of steps on the stairs down from the second floor. and everyone turns to see Apatia with a slight sheen of sweat on her, sort of not exactly racing, not exactly tumbling, but something exactly between those two things, maybe scrambling down the stairs. And when she gets to the bottom, she looks back and forth between Romnet and Lissa and goes, "I made the most amazing discovery."
Oh, do tell.
She fixes her gaze on Lissa and says, "I'm assuming you knew, but the things that people can do together, they're amazing. They drown out all other sensations. You have to come with me."
I am aware. There's been a bit of a situation. I didn't mean to distract you from your discoveries. And I'm happy to tell you all about that later. The Dosk help.
Apatia looks at Dosk expectantly and licks her lips.
I don't think that kind of help at the moment. No, there is it's a lifelong study, I think, for many people.
I was asking about the thing with all the gods and the marriage proposals.
I'm just giggling through this whole thing.
Oh, that's a good response.
So it seems all the gods are at war. Less of a fun discovery than the one you've made. But we've reason to believe that this ridiculous notion by my lights of absolute sovereignty over the cosmos seems to be a very common preoccupation, which seems bad.
We don't know that ours wants that yet.
Ours might be unique among all in not being indifferent to the matter.
In not giving it him? Yes.
Apatia blinks twice rapidly and says, "Oh dear. Well, I suppose all the more matter for us to make the most of time then." And she rushes up and grasps Lissa's hand in both of hers. There is an empty room upstairs.
Oh. Yeah. Excuse me, Dosk.
I will just clap Lissa on the shoulder. You go have fun.
And Apatia looks at Romnet and says, "You could join us."
I fear
No.
I fear that my attractions generally do not trend that way, but I do hope you both have a very good time.
Apatia looks a little bit deflated and goes, "Oh, no, I suppose that makes sense. I have a lot to learn," and pulls Apatia towards the stairs. Pulls Alyssa towards the stairs.
I give a thumbs up to Dosk.
I will offer one of the glasses of tea that I won to Das.
I return the thumbs up and I take.
Did the bartender notice that I was cheating?
Unclear. He was remarkably silent while you were playing, but you did catch him smirking at you a couple of times, so maybe. It could also just be that he thinks you're hot.
I mean, given his initial reaction to me, may or may not. Yeah.
He has had a little time to get used to you,
Fair.
You're outside of his comfort zone, but yeah.
I'm outside of most people's comfort zone.
though. It's true.
Notes of smiling.
Lissa
Marvelous.
Lissa disappears up the stairs with Apatia, and leaves Dosk and Romnet in the common room at the bar. There are a couple of other people at tables, and Ia and Lenara have left. And it's approaching dusk. In Theret at this point, the sortie comes at dawn. What do you spend your evening doing?
In Melissa's case, it appears to be a pitch.
I mean, I wasn't going to be that explicit about it, but yes.
Damn it, Dosk.
Let the record show that Des
Unless
did
I
wait
hear
until
otherwise
Robin
from Lissa, that's what I assume is happening.
Let the record show that Des waited until Robin took a sip of something.
That was the second attempt.
This time I did not notice that Robin was drinking.
Because there's now coconut water in my nose.
I'm sorry, that was not actually the intent.
Well done, sir.
But really, how could you not have expected that response?
True.
In retrospect.
Hindsight's 2020.
We're enjoying something like a quiet moment, so I say, well, I don't know that things are excellent, but the marriage is off.
The second one, Dosk has had to escape from.
Honestly, it might have been a reasonable proposal, to use a word that's a bit on the nose, but I'm just as content with you here, with me.
I would say I'm a damn sight more content, and furthermore, we couldn't have trusted her.
Well, no.
I don't trust her to leave town when she says she's going to leave town,
no,
much less to...
This is a marriage. This is not really a relationship.
Jan goes, "Aww."
I love Jan.
I also love Jan. Well, yes.
It would merely be politics. After all, she did have her parting shot about the fidelity matter.
Sure.
However, I will just sort of put an arm on your shoulder. Here we are.
Jan slides you both a shot glass of something clear.
What does it smell like?
Thank you.
Alcohol.
I give Jan a heartfelt thank you. We raise our glasses. I say I've seen a lot of the kind of marriage you're describing, and I feel that even an eternal life is too short.
Jan winks at the two of you, and while you are saying this, he slides a key toward Dosk on the bar and says, "Room 7's open," and then goes and busies himself attending to the customers at tables in the common room.
Shall we make the most of the opportunities afforded us?
I think we'd be fools not to.
And everyone retires for the night. Now, under other circumstances, that might make a really good ending to the session, but I am going to fast forward to the morning. Morning light does not really affect you guys because the Spordello does not typically have rooms with windows, as I mentioned earlier. But all the same, we actually called it a night pretty early in most cases because of, eyebrows reasons. So everybody sort of wakes relatively early. I'm going to start with Dosk and Romnet here. Romnet's caffeine withdrawals wake him relatively early, and this wakes Dosk relatively early. And the last of the three to awake is Lissa. Now,
don't tell me
I
it's
don't
through the sortie.
I will...
No,
Okay,
you did not.
thank you.
You did not sleep through the sortie.
Immediately after getting my tea that is
Mhm.
still owed me from, the Seraphins,
Sure.
I will cast Shadow Jacket on
Mm-hmm.
an article of Dusk's clothing.
All right. So Shadow Jacket reads, while wearing a dark-colored piece of chest-covering clothing soaked in water and dried all in complete darkness prior to casting the spell, caster may use dice from spellcast roll as gobble dice against sight rolls to perceive the sneaking caster, spell not detectable by Eerie. So presumably you wake up in enough time to soak Dosk's dark
when I took his
garments
shirt off
in
last night,
water.
it simply may have soaked in water overnight in a room without windows.
Certainly. So go ahead and roll your 6+ master dice.
So that is 3 9s, becomes 4 9s.
All right, that's height in minutes. Gobble dice against sight rolls. So 9 minutes in which Dosk will not be detectable by sight very easily. That said, Romnet's probably the first to arise in the morning. Or rather,
I would
before
probably
dawn.
do that at a point where those 9 minutes would be a useful 9 minutes, rather than just, 9 minutes assembling everyone in the common room.
Certainly, I understand the intent there. Dosk probably gets up shortly after that, and Apatia wakes Lissa shortly after that, smiling rather beatifically with blood staining her chin. It was, even by Lissa's standards, a fairly wild night. especially given that Apatia is a relative neophyte here. But she wakes you with a, "Good morning, Lissa. It's time for some violence."
Oh, Apatia is darling.
Rarely have I been gladder that we have someone doing fan.
I mean, obviously I love Apatia. I keep putting her in things.
Yeah. And thank you for that.
Indeed.
Approximately 15 minutes before sunrise, the four of you have assembled in the common room. And here you all are, Apatia included. Apatia, for her part, can't stop giggling.
Whenever she giggles, I kind of either smirk or giggle myself, even though I'm trying not to, and am clearly very tired.
Clearly.
I think we're probably contented in a less in a less giggly way. We're just kind of happy to have spent time together. I point of order, I don't know about the shadow jacketing.
Oh, I tell you.
Character, right?
Do not unless
you
he
tell me,
tells you.
okay.
But yeah, okay, he tells you, you know about it.
Then we're having a sensible, breakfast discussion about spells and stuff, as we tend to.
Yeah, so one thing you may want to cover, and this is something that I'm saying as GM because Lissa and Apatia may want to fill people in about, what the plan is and where Dosk and Romnet might fit into it.
Yeah, absolutely, because the drunk explanation was insufficient. I imagine that once I get my bearings enough, I go into further detail. I tell Dosk about the Merchants Council and my little shout out to him, though I leave out the detail about potentially interrupting the ending of the council. And I also would kind of talk about the plan of the sortie with Mavia and Apatia serving as a distraction, and stress that the idea is just to not to help out the supporting group as much as possible because the odds are 10-1, and I tell them about MB's role in kind of cushioning their arrival, and then look at Dosk and go, I don't know about war, so I hope I made the right choice in backing Uncle Melly, but I like him and I trust his judgment.
Oh, I think you made the right choice. If there is a right choice to make, he's usually it.
Okay. That makes me feel better. I've been really paranoid about this whole thing because there's people out there that are not going to make it, and I don't want to be... I'd want to make sure it was the lesser of the two evil options.
Oh, you probably chose the least of innumerable evils. It sounds like you did incredibly.
Thank you. I'm really scared.
Apatia puts a hand on the small of your back and says, I'll be with you, though.
I know, but if things go south, get out of there. I don't... Just be careful around Mavia.
She smiles her sharp-toothed smile and says, I can handle Mavia.
I'm sure you could. Anyway, yeah, so in terms of you two, you're going to be focused on erasing the Shadowed Lands.
When you put it that way, yes. I think, and I don't mean this in any way to diminish the incredible work that you've done as far as strategy or the work that you will do in battle, but in a certain sense, this is a distraction. The war will hopefully be won by the time you're back, because I mean to do what must be done.
Apatia, you're more experienced in this. We're concerned that Dosk may not have enough power, and Ia suggested there might be a way to essentially give him power.
She looks considering and she says, It would make sense if there was such a right, but it has not been shared with me by Mother Nyx. She looks a little ashamed and says, Quite the opposite, in fact. If the Sirthans mean to enact such a right, it will be entirely in their court. But I cannot do so because I do not know what it might entail. I am sorry.
It's okay. I just... we're new to this, and I thought that might be something where you had a little bit more knowledge, but it's good to know that you know about as much as we do about what these Sirthans are offering.
There may be one other matter in which you're more experienced than we are, and I withdraw the boon, the bladed goblet, as I've come to call it in my head.
Regarding it, Apatia sways a little on her feet and shakes her head and says, "That is potent.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Do you know what it does?"
No, but yes, but no.
Well, whatever it is, it will be powerful. But that is all I can say.
All right. Well, that's good. I mean, that's good. That means we don't have junk. We don't have a placebo. That's better.
She nods a little bit and she says, "I realize how much of this rests on your shoulders, Dusk, and I wish you to know." And she puts like a hand on your cheek and she says, "You can do this, and we will help you." And she looks back and forth from Ramnet to Lissa to herself and back to you.
Thank you. My body shakes a bit, and a tear wells up, and I don't stop it, and I just feel grateful for a moment.
I just wrap them both in a big hug and pull Ramnut in, willing or not.
Well, very well.
It's gonna be just a big hug puddle, guys. Come on.
In the big hug puddle, Apatia traces a finger up Dusk's cheek and catches the tear and then puts it in her mouth and moans.
Oh, Adam.
This does not break the solemnity of the moment, but it comes close.
This is just
no,
Apatia.
it adds to it in a certain way. No. We're quite used to her at this point. More than.
At almost exactly the moment that you are ready to end the embrace, you hear the horn from the Merchants Council building calling everybody to arms. And that, for Apatia and Lissa at least, is your cue. Is there anything in particular you wish to communicate before you part ways?
Let's get drinks after. And I give a meaningful look to Dusk and Ramnut.
Be well, both of you. All of you.
Drinks after. Victoriously. And many, many more after that.
Yes. Yeah, and don't come back with too much of your blood leaking.
Apatia gives a big hug to Ramnet, then to Dusk, and then she leans up and pecks Lissa on the lips and says, "I suppose we should go then," and holds Lissa's hand.
We head out. And I glance back at Ramnet and give him a wink and a grin as I leave, even if the usual light is not there in the expression.
I will return it with a sort of... I will return it with a benediction of the Obsidian God.
Lissa and Apatia leave the comic room. Where are Dusk and Ramnet headed, if anywhere?
I've given this some thought, and I want the highest place of absolute darkness in the city of Theret. And I think that's probably somewhere in Lid Manor. Though you and I did not discuss this.
We did not, but Lid Manor is fairly far up the hill, and you do know where the places of absolute darkness and it might be located, so you and Ramnet head to Lid Manor. And so we will leave off this session with Lissa and Apatia heading toward the square where the forces of the Merchants' Council are marshalling. And I mean, it overflows the square by quite a lot near the south gate. And you need to just kind of check in before you head toward the north wall for your own sortie. But that's where the commanders and the troops will be. Meanwhile, Ramnet and Dusk are heading to Lud Manor, and just as Apatia and Lissa are arriving at the square, Ramnet and Dusk are arriving at Lud Manor. The first roll of thunder from out over the ocean arrives at the shore. And that's where we'll end our session. Everyone can have one mortal experience for now.
One unusually mortal experience.
Yeah.
I'm
always exactly the same amount of mortal.
Experience.
I also enjoyed
Sure.
the for now,
Mhm.
the most ominous experience.
Yeah, you know what this was lacking was foreboding. Threw some in there.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that I got there. So that concludes this session of Dice Punks. Thanks for joining us. I hope our players and listeners enjoyed it as much as I did, and that you'll all join us again next time. If you're hearing us now, then you probably know where to listen to us, but we can be found almost any place one can listen to podcasts, as well as on the wider web at dicepunks.com and on Twitter as @dicepunks. With that, I think we're ready to say farewell. Say goodbye to the kind folks at home, players.
Thanks for listening, and remember, no matter how long you think like life is, live the way you know you want to and should.
That was so serious. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Remember to be thorough in your studies. It pays off.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for listening, folks. And when presented with an opportunity to shame gods, take it ruthlessly.
Fuck, yes.
Hell yes. And as the poet once said, behind what I know and see, a darkness that will spy on me, destroy, divide the dark inside. Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in, and stick around through the admin stuff. There's a Realmnet prophecy waiting for you at the end of it. The songs in this episode, Theme of the Dice Punks in its acoustic version, were written and recorded by the Regal of Nothing himself, Drew. Cover art is by Joanne, who has appeared on the podcast now and again. Check out her work around the internet, where she goes by Anything Sews Embroidery. Site design and graphics for DicePunks.com are by Robin, the player behind Lissa, the irrepressible Duchess of Fury. Rain and the one-roll engine it runs on were created by Greg Stolze, who can be found in a lot of places, but you should check out gregstolze.com. Nobilis was created by Jenna Caterin Moran, who can be found alongside much of her other really intriguing work, both in and outside of tabletop role-playing, at afarandsunlessland.wordpress.com. Links to both systems and authors can be found on the Punk Grimoire section of our website, dicepunks.com. Thanks so much for listening. If you liked what you heard, that's reward enough on its own, but if you're so inclined, you can help us out by rating and reviewing us wherever you listen to us, telling your friends who you think would like us to give us a listen, and even heading over to our Patreon at patreon.com/dicepunks. We have fun rewards available to backers, including a patron-only Discord and access to the Dice Peaks After Show for episodes 1 and following. Regardless, we hope you'll tune in again, and until then, remember, subtlety is for cowards.
Remember, child, that political ties are fleeting and fickle. Better perhaps to remain alone in the embrace of the obsidian god.